Here, ladies and gentlemen, Top Pack Gaming Man, hello! For those who have been following this channel for a while, there is nothing I love more than covering different parts of global gaming history. For far too long on YouTube now, we have heard people repeatedly regurgitate the same boring information about the video game crash, or as I like to call it, the American Regional Atari crash. Yeah! Today on this channel, we are going to be covering a different gaming tragedy. A Greek tragedy, to be more specific. I have wanted to cover this part of gaming history on this channel for quite some time now, and seeing as I am currently in Greece, I thought I would talk about this crazy event which happened here, which I assume the majority of you may not know about. Today I am going to run you through the insane history of the Greek video game ban. Enjoy. Gaming has been banned in many regions across this planet, particularly in countries led by tyrannical dictators and those of which want to keep Western values and influence as far away from their civilizations and cultures as possible. Greece, on the other hand, is a European country, a member of the EU, NATO, and arguably the country where many Western values were established in the first place. Greece was, after all, the birthplace of philosophy, geometry, medicine, and democracy. So with all this in mind, why would they want to take a step as regressive as banning bloody video games of all things? So let's explore why they chose to do such a thing. By the way, this isn't something that happened many years ago, like perhaps in the 70s or 80s. Oh no. I'm referring to a law which was passed as recently as 2002. Yes, that's right. You could have been arrested or imprisoned for playing your original Xbox, or games on your PC. Even mobile phone games were covered by this vague and controversial law. Back in 2002, the Greek government, the Pan-Hellenic Socialist Movement, passed the law which is known infamously as Law 3037/2002. It was a law which banned all electronic games and was created as a knee-jerk reaction after a politician was filmed being a very naughty boy in an illegal gambling establishment, which of course ended up in the press. This was grossly blown out of proportion and caused huge dissonance with the Greek population and their government. Basically, he was essentially playing an illegal fruit machine. The law was made effective on the 29th of June 2002. The law would impact both Greek citizens and tourists alike, which technically meant that if you weren't aware of the law and you brought your child to Greece equipped with their Game Boy Advance, you could have very well ended up arrested, fined, and even sent to prison. One Greek technology journalist called Panos Livitsanos is quoted to have said, "Parliament took this decision spontaneously and under unbearable pressure to wipe out the cancer of gambling. As a result, they voted one of the most excessive, unprepared and extreme laws ever enacted in Europe." Even the EasyJet owner, Greek entrepreneur Stelios, who is also the founder of Easy Internet Cafe chain and a handful of other easy businesses, had commented, "I hope the government will see the light and stop trying to enforce a ridiculous law. This is not the way to bridge the digital divide. Easy Internet Cafe is very close to entering the Greek market and will fight this." So this law even managed to prevent a new and potentially highly lucrative business from one of their own international tycoons from entering the country. But being insanely stubborn, one government spokesperson called Christoph Protopapas absurdly defended this absolutely mental piece of legislation, commenting, "The measure is a tough one, but it is the only effective one, as ordinary electronic games can easily be converted into illegal games by owners of such facilities. Utterly ridiculous considering they were banning technology which they very clearly did not actually understand." This evidence is further backed by one Greek newspaper called Katamarini, which reported the blanket ban had been decided on after the government actually admitted it was incapable of distinguishing innocuous video games from the illegal gambling machines. See what I mean? But I will add that in addition to your usual badly behaved politician, there actually had also been widespread issues with arcade machines which had been jury rigged to make monetary payouts instead of awarding extra plays for high scores, etc. But again, just because some arcade machines have been tampered with by certain business owners, this doesn't mean you need to punish every single gamer out there by removing their rights to be able to play games altogether. Imagine receiving a brand new PlayStation 2 from your parents for Christmas in 2001, only to then be told that by law you're no longer allowed to play it, or you'll go to prison. All because one sleazy politician was doing the usual sleazy politician things. Let's make this scarier actually. Imagine owning a PC and it just so happens to have Minesweeper pre-installed as standard. With this law in place, in all technicalities, you were breaking it. Basically, the Greek government of the time were scapegoating gaming in order to supplement gambling laws, which they were potentially not keeping on top of well enough. If you have ever been to Greece, or any of their surrounding islands, you will see that if there are any ways for local business owners to dodge certain laws, they most certainly will. It feels like breaking the law is almost part of the culture here sometimes. What's this all about? So, with all this in mind, throughout the period this law was apparently in force, I played all sorts of games. Every summer I would depart for work in Greece, and with me I would bring my trusty Game Boy Advance. Come to think of it, I would bring my GameCube on occasion too as well. I was blissfully unaware of this crazy law. In fact, I even remember playing FIFA on the PlayStation 2 in multiple local bars in the area where I worked. But then again, these were the sort of establishments that shamelessly advertised the showing of pirate movies on their premises on a daily basis. Not to mention other shenanigans I will not go into detail on. The area just didn't seem very well policed, and the locals did not have much regard for the law. That does not mean though the law wasn't being acted on in other parts of the country though, as we shall be going into detail on in this video. In regards to these laws being enforced, the law actually led to some internet cafe owners being taken to court, as they were allowing their customers to play some online games, including harmless games like chess, and were taken to court in Thessaloniki. More than 300 protesters surrounded the court in support of the cafe owners, and luckily the judge who was involved in the case found the law itself to be unconstitutional. Police were cracking down on players of Counter-Strike and Age of Empires, as well as digital backgammon and chess. Over the rest of Greece, over 50 people were arrested and were facing between 3 to 12 months in prison, and fines ranging from €5,000 to €75,000. This story keeps sounding more and more absurd by the minute. As mentioned, a lower court in Thessaloniki throughout this first case. This in turn led to other district judges following suit. In Greece, at the time, such rulings were unusual because essentially the judiciary system was making a stand against the state. I guess in a way, this was kind of like the equivalent of a military coup, all just over gaming. During all of this, a Thessaloniki-based gaming company called Reload Entertainment had to actually cancel a gaming tournament and relocate to Oslo. Petros Tippis, a representative of the company, advised about how worried the normal Greek people were about this law, saying they, the Greek people, are taking it very seriously. It even affects the games that come with Windows. This law isn't the right one. It is unfair. It was introduced too quickly. Now, this is how ridiculously stubborn the Greek government was getting. Nikos Kakayanis, spokesperson for the Hellenic Association of Internet Cafe Owners, is quoted to have said, "In Larissa, the police arrested an internet cafe owner and seized 10 PCs from his store. Just 5 days after he was declared innocent by the court, the police arrested him again and seized another 20 PCs. Insane circumstances, eh?" This kerfuffle would eventually end up in the High Court, which actually had no power to overturn the law, I might add. The court examined a possible appeal against the law on the 26th of February 2003. There was a chance at the time that it could take 12 to 18 months to reach the Supreme Court. Kakayanis would go on to say about that, by the time this went through, there wouldn't be any internet cafes left, on the basis that cafe owners claimed their businesses had already been halved due to the common man's fear of even stepping into them in the first place. The ridiculous gaming ban even went on to cause issues for only partially related industries too. For example, one company called JVH Hellas One of their primary inputs to the country were photoplay consoles and digital knowledge-based games such as Trivial Pursuit. The company ended up withdrawing 7,000 machines from the market and lost approximately €2.9 million in the process. All this because this stupid law had the regular Greeks terrified. My gosh, the Greek government love destroying their economy sometimes, don't they? EU bailout, anyone? During this period, many Greeks were hoping for an EU intervention. The owner of JVH Hellas is quoted to have said, "If the case goes to the European Court, we will win. The problem is that it will take time, and I don't think we will survive." So that was their company utterly destroyed within a few months. The Greek Internet Cafe Union had advised at the time that theoretically the police can arrest you if you are using your PC for playing games, or if your employer catches you playing chess or backgammon on Yahoo at work. The whole matter could remain in a sphere of comedy if it didn't concern directly the employment of thousands of people. The union went on to advise that if the law was enforced down to the very last letter, the next stage would be to ban the selling of games and legal action against Microsoft to remove games from the Greek version of Windows, though Greek officials did say at the time they had no plans to ban the imports of consoles or try to enforce anything on Microsoft. No, for the meantime they were just going to terrify the common man into not buying the stock once it was in Greece, and then take on the big players later. This law got so ridiculous, in fact, that the EU did eventually decide to get involved. The European Commission ended up writing to the Greek Foreign Ministry multiple times over several years, advising that their law was actually in conflict with current EU legislation, and if the law wasn't scrapped or at least amended in line with EU legislation, then the EU would have the right to take Greece to the European Court of Justice. However, obviously this wasn't because the whole situation was utterly ridiculous and horrendously unfair to their common man. It was simply due to the EU being concerned that Greece was hampering the free movement of goods. The European Union didn't actually cause the Greek government to alter the law initially. In response to the EU, all the Greek government did was publish a document which made an effort to clarify the more controversial articles within the law. This isn't what the EU had asked, and things still remained grossly unfair. However, this did lead to the finance minister for Greece issuing a statement advising that electronic games were okay, as long as no financial benefit was involved. In 2003, the Greek government finally got around to actually amending the law. However, all it did was sweep up on a few loose ends, and would further go on to crack down unfairly on internet cafe owners, bars and arcades. Further to this, Greek police were encouraged to raid internet cafes to enforce the law. It was reported that year in a newspaper that multiple establishments were raided in a town called Larissa, where over 80 PCs were taken as evidence and many cafe owners, bar owners and arcade owners were arrested. It would not be until February 2005 before the European Commission would step in again and would actually refer Greece to the European Court of Justice to get some action taken against this ridiculously unfair law. After a few years, we got to 2007 and the European Commission would chase Greece yet again in an attempt to lift the ban. Their website says the following: "The European Commission has formally reminded the Greek authorities to lift its total ban on gaming machines, including computer games. The European Court of Justice ruled that the Greek law, which banned the installation and operation of all gaming machines, violates a number of principles associated with the internal market. The Commission has now reminded the Greek authorities of their duty to comply with the rulings of the Court of Justice." Despite all of this, Greece did not get around to eventually repealing this silly law until 2011, meaning this insanity was technically in place for nearly an entire decade. No wonder I do not have any bloody arcades in the local Greek town I reside in anymore. So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a crazy piece of gaming history in which I doubt many of you knew about. YouTube seems far too obsessed with the American history of gaming to really even comment much on some of the more interesting history which has happened elsewhere. So with this in mind, I shall continue to bring to the table more gaming history from around the world. Maybe you have a national gaming story you can share with us all in the comment section. Further to this, If you are a Greek watching this video, let us all know how this ban affected you, if it did at all. Thank you for watching today's video. Do not forget to like, comment and subscribe for in-depth gaming videos on this channel every single week. Also, if you never want to miss a video, make sure you hit the notification bell to stay notified. Yeah! My channel, Top Hat Gaming Man, is partly funded from the fantastic support and donations I receive from my lovely Patreon benefactors who contribute to the Top Hat Trust. So, shout outs to Carl Johnson, Shizuka Kobayashi, Andy Aldridge, Richard Clark, Michael Kenneally, Greg Hooper, Harold Webb, Sint Spaces, Kevin Verhaley, David Mountford, Andrew Bazansky, Edward O'Reilly, Peter Dawn, Retail Archaeology, Tom Elliott, Mark S. Hines, Gary Pinkett and all of my other patrons. You motivate me to no end when it comes to making hundreds of hours of content every year. So, as always, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Cheerio!